Well, the Supreme Court, the neo-fascist Supreme Court, began its new term today. And the newest member, the newest justice, is Ketanji Brown Jackson. And already the court has said it will decide cases on a range of major issues, including affirmative action, that one again, voting rights, the rights of LGBTQ people. And of course, there is more, and the justices will be adding cases to their docket in the coming months. But here's some of the cases that the court has already agreed to hear, and this is pretty insane because we know what the rulings are going to be. First of all, affirmative action. Now, these are cases from Harvard and the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. In these cases, the courts could end any consideration of race in college admissions. And if that seems familiar, because it's been going on forever, it's because the High Court has been asked repeatedly over the past 20 years to end affirmative action in higher education. And in previous cases from Michigan and Texas, the Supreme Court reaffirmed the validity of considering college applicants' race among many factors. But this court is a Christian terrorist court. 6 members are part of the Christian terrorist cult in this country. So what do you think is going? And on that basis, they are incredibly, incredibly racist. So what do you think is going to happen? If anything should be granted to people of color in this country, it is the idea of affirmative action where it concerns higher education after affirmative action was used against them. For 300 years, there was no affirmative action. It was all destructive action. When do you think white people in this country, and by that I mean the power structure, and look, I'm white, it's very uncomfortable for me to talk this way. But I know the fucking history of this country, and so should you. And so should everybody. And it should be taught starting in first grade what white people did to Africans and how this whole racist horror began. Where was I? But the idea that affirmative action somehow is a threat to white people? What the fuck? What else? Voting rights. Here's another thing that another issue the Supreme Court will be listening to that has in the crosshairs people of color in this country. The court could further reduce protections for minority voters. And this would be the third major consideration in 10 years of the Voting Rights Act, which was enacted to fight enduring racial discrimination in voting. It just seems like there's no way to stop it. And yes, most of it comes in the South. 90% of it, 95% of it comes in the South. But Jesus Christ Almighty, what is wrong with white people? That you're afraid of allowing your black brothers and sisters just to fucking vote? I'm sorry. Now, the particular case that these neo-fascist judges are going to hear involves Alabama. And in that state, just one of the state's 7 congressional districts has a black majority, even though 27% of the residents of Alabama are black. They are given 1/7 representation in the U.S. House. So a 3-judge panel had that included 2 appointees of Donald Trump agreed that the state should have to create a second district with a black majority. But the Supreme Court said, no, 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 not until we hear the case. And a ruling for the state of Alabama could wipe away all but the most obvious cases of intentional discrimination on the basis of race. So there's another one that our black brothers and sisters in this country are going to have to sit there and wait to see what's going to happen. Why are they doing this to us? That would be my thought were I a black person. Why does this shit keep up? Why? After 300 fucking years, why is this continuing? But here it is. Now, another issue that this neo-fascist court is going to hear is about elections. The Christian terrorists are asking the justices to get their arms around a weird legal concept that would limit state courts' oversight of elections for Congress. In other words, the states' rights people used to be the Republicans. Now they're the Christian terrorists. Remember all this? States' rights, states' rights, states' rights. But now what the Christian terrorists are saying, well, we want to take away from the states the right of oversight of elections and give it to Congress. North Carolina's top court threw out that state's congressional map because it gave the Christian terrorists an incredible advantage in a state that's closely divided. And North Carolina eventually came up with a map that basically evenly divided the state's 14 congressional districts between Democrats and Republicans. But the state GOP, aka the Christian terrorists, argues that state courts have no role to play in congressional elections, including redistricting, because the U.S. Constitution gives that power to state legislatures alone. And prior to hearing this case, 4 of the Christian terrorists out of the 6 on the Supreme Court have expressed varying levels of openness to the idea of what they're calling, quote, independent state legislature theory, which means racist, goddamn white supremacist state legislatures. How much longer can this country withstand this? And then there's another one that the court is being asked to take a look at is clean water. Clean water. The Christian terrorists destroy every single effort by the federal government to make sure that people have clean water to drink, whether it comes through legislation or the EPA. This is another case, then, where the court is being asked to toss aside an earlier ruling from them, from the Supreme Court, and loosen the regulation of property under the nation's chief law to combat water pollution, the Clean Water Act. Remember that? Huh? The case involves a couple in Idaho who won an earlier high court ruling in their bid to build a house on property near a lake without getting a permit under the Clean Water Act. And the outcome of this case could change the rules for millions of acres of property that contain wetlands. Now, wetlands, of course, are absolutely critical to life on Earth. But the Christian terrorists don't give a fuck. This couple in Idaho say, wait a minute, I can build anywhere I want to. If it's a wetlands, well, tough shit. So how do you suppose the Supreme Court's going to rule on that one? Then there's immigration. Biden administration is back in the Supreme Court, and they're going to argue for a change in immigration policy from the administration of this filthy pig Donald Trump. The Biden administration is appealing a ruling against a Biden policy prioritizing deportation of people in the country illegally who pose the greatest public safety risk. And the last term, right before the summer break, the Supreme Court justices, by a 5-4 vote, said, okay, the Biden administration could end the Trump policy that required people seeking asylum in this country to wait in Mexico for their court hearing. And in July, also by a 5-4 vote, the fascist Supreme Court refused to allow the Biden administration to put in place a policy that had guidance for deportations. See, a Trump policy favored deporting people in the country illegally, regardless of their criminal history or community ties. So what the Biden administration is trying to say, look, we want to deport first the people that have obvious criminal ties, whether they're gang-related or narco-terrorism, whatever the hell it is. And of course, Trump said, we don't give a shit about any of that. Just throw everybody out of the country. They don't belong here. So that ruling is going to have a profound effect on what happens at our southern border. And then there's LGBTQ rights. There's a new clash now involving this goddamn Christian terrorism and free speech and the rights of lesbian and gay people. And the case is also now going to come before these Christian terrorists on the Supreme Court, 6 of whom are Catholic. The case involves a designer in Colorado, Lori Smith. She's a graphic designer, website designer. She wants to expand her business and offer wedding website services. But poor Lori says her Christian beliefs would lead her to decline any request from a same-sex couple to design a wedding website. And that puts her in conflict with an anti-discrimination law in Colorado. Oh, Lori, you poor fucking bitch, you poor miserable bitch. Your Christian beliefs? It's people like you, Lori, who have taken this religion and turned it into the barrel of shit that it has proved itself to be over 2 millennia. Unfucking real. Poor Lori Smith. Oh, what if a gay couple comes and asks me to make a website for them? Ooh, Jesus would get so pissed off at me. Oh, my God. Remember 5 years ago about the case that the baker objected to making cakes for same-sex weddings? Remember that ruling? Well, this fascist Supreme Court has gotten more fascist since then. Lori Smith. Oh, my God, her Christian beliefs would be shattered if she was asked to design. Lori, I don't think your Jesus fucking Christ cares 1 degree about a fucking website. You're the one doing it, Lori. People like you who make life so goddamn miserable so much of the time. People like you, Lori, with your pissy little cheesy-ass belief system and your bigotry and your prejudice and your hatred and your self-contempt that you spew out onto everybody else. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.